Wait a second, guys. Just wait a second. Okay, I drew a map somewhere. Hang on. I've got the map. Is it on the post-it? No, it's not on the post-it. I've got it somewhere. I'm going to draw it. Okay. There's a thing and a thing, and there's a pathway, and there's some tree. All right. Do you get that? Okay. So that's what you're seeing. Yeah. All right. Where are you? Your character is sort of there. Your character is there, kind of there. I just imagine it. No. Okay. Yeah. Well, I know you can move 5. No, but you're 15 feet. Look. I mean, it's as clear as mud that you are 15 feet away, and it cuts across a box because I've just drawn it in there now. Let's just play bridge. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and today we are looking at resources that allow you to run your game better. Now, this is a bit of a review of what we've spoken about before, and we've principally got 3 resources for you to look at. Now, before we continue any further, I must say that this episode is sponsored by yet another sponsor that has joined the How to Be a Great GM stable of sponsors. And that sponsor is none other than Fantasy Grounds. Now, Fantasy Grounds has been a virtual tabletop of choice for many gamers, online and offline for that matter, for quite a long time. And they've now joined us as sponsors of the channel because, well, they do stuff that we like and we do stuff that they like, apparently. More importantly than that is that they are updating. So the Fantasy Grounds that we all love is updating with Fantasy Grounds Unity. Now, I happen to have their website handy here. Fantasy Grounds Unity, as you can see, their goal was $30,000, just short of. They've more than 10 times that amount. That's how popular this VTT is. Now, I know that there is some resistance to going with virtual tabletops and to using technology at the gaming table. So I'm going to be having a look at all of the stuff that I now currently use and telling you why I like it. Now, this is not to say that you have to go and join the Kickstarter of this program, although let me just tell you that, well, it's going to do some amazing stuff. I'm going to show you Fantasy Grounds, the regular version, shortly, and if it doesn't blow you away, I don't know what doesn't. This Fantasy Grounds Unity takes it even a step further, and they've kind of unlocked everything. I don't think there's anything left to unlock. They really have blown people away. Look at that. Okay, so yeah, there's one or two things left to unlock. I'm sure we can get them now. Now, I have put a link down below which is trackable, so if you are going to go and back this amazing project, if you haven't already, please use that link so that they know that you came from this particular video. It would be really beneficial if you did that, simply because it helps us, because they support us, and you support them, and we support each other. Anyway, so it's an amazing Kickstarter to be involved in. But Fantasy Grounds on its own is something to be quite well thought of. Now, I've got Fantasy Grounds open here behind me, and I think the important thing to bear in mind is how do you use this to enhance your game? How do you make your game better using a VTT? And I've got some examples that I'm going to show you in terms of helping you as the game master to run it. Now, you don't have to use Dungeons and Dragons. Fantasy Grounds supports a massive amount of role-playing games. I just happen to have the D&D one open. So it supports all kinds of different types of role-playing games. It's not just Dungeons and Dragons. But what it does, once you get past the initial learning curve of how to use Fantasy Grounds, it really can speed up your game. And I have been using it in my online games where I've got multiple players joining in, and I've also been using it in my offline games where the players don't sign into Fantasy Grounds, only I do as the game master. Why is that? Well, because of many features that Fantasy Grounds brings with it. I think the most important thing is the ease of use. That once you've got used to learning it, but that's the case with all pieces of software that we have these days. You always have to learn how it works, and then it becomes easy. Unfortunately, it should be the other way around. It's easy, and then you learn how it works. No. Anyway, so there are a few things that I particularly like. I like the dice roller where you can grab a d20 or any kind of dice for that matter. And let me get out of the way here. Let's grab a d8 and you just right click to add more. And then when you roll it, it gives you the array as well as the number rolled. And of course you can advantage it and give it penalties and modifiers as you so like. But that's just the beginning. For me, I like to be able to bring up NPCs on the fly, and it loads up a whole bunch of NPCs. And yes, like most systems, you need to buy the various books that you want. But here's the important thing, is that once you've got the book, you then have access to any kind of creature that you like. So let's bring up an ankylosaur. Not something that you come across very often, but here is our ankylosaur. It's got all of the stats as per the book, and it allows us with a click of a button to make a strength save. It automatically rolls for us, and if I were to get out of the way, you'd see that it's automatically calculated the strength save for us. If it's going to make an attack, it tells us it has a tail attack where, again, I am actually on the wrong side of my screen. That's how much damage it does. What does it do to hit? Well, there's its to hit roll. It rolls a 19. That's a hit. Let's roll the damage. Double click on the damage and it does it automatically. Now, if you roll a crit, it will automatically double the dice for you. So there's none of this trying to figure out this and figure out that. So apart from just being an amazing dice roller, there is so much more to it. There is additional information if you so wanted to. There is imagery that you can bring up if you have the right imagery, or if you want to add imagery, for example. What I've been doing recently is this. I've been looking at the races. Now, again, all the races are available for use depending on which books you have. So if you've got Volo's Guide or if you've got basically the Player's Guide, you can add in these races. What you can do, however, and that's what I've been doing, is I've been making new races. Now, why is this important? Well, yes, the races can just be added into good old-fashioned pen and paper. But I'm going to create a PC very quickly. Here you can see some PCs who will be known to you later on. I'm going to create a new character though. And so I'm going to close that window. This character is going to have the merfolk as their race. But before, let me put in that little array. So I'm going to go 12, 134, which is a plus 62. I didn't know that, by the way. Let's put 13 there. Let's put 14 there. Let's put 10 there, I think. Let's put 8 there, and let's put 15 in here. I don't think that's the right array, but anyway, that's the array that I've chosen to go with. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my merfolk template into the race box. It's going to apply the stat modifiers. It's going to give me dark vision. It's giving me my swim moves. It's given me my skills that I've got proficiency in, as well as it's loaded up the various attributes that comes with the merfolk race. So you can breathe underwater, you can spend an hour, etc., etc. Now these races I created myself. So when we open up a race, let me open one that looks nice. Is it that one? No, is it the merfolk one? Here we go, the merfolk one. I've put in all of the extra effort and text that you might need. I haven't finished the other races yet, where you can highlight, you can give some basic information, and then you've got all of their scores and things. Now these you are creating yourself, or you're adding them in if you're creating custom races, and you just go through the process. It's fairly straightforward, it's fairly simple. You create the race and then you can just drag it and drop it. So from a character creation perspective, it's really slick and really simple. I can now, if I need to make a strength save, double click on the strength save and it automatically gives me a value which I'm blocking, which would be a pass. If I want to make an attack roll, I would need to have a whole bunch of other things added, my class, my backgrounds, all those kinds of things. And again, it's as simple as finding a background that you like. I had to create a background here called Smuggler for the Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign. Again, I was able to just create it on the fly as I wanted to. So I'm going to drop Smuggler in there. It's given me some new features. And then I just need a class, which I don't think I had preloaded. So I'm going to grab that quickly. Yes, those are the different classes that I can add. I'm going to do that. Grab a class. Let's just do that. And we're going to say that this merfolk is a let's see, let's make them a ranger. Why not? So we're gonna make them a ranger. No, not a ranger, not a ranger, not a ranger, please, not a ranger. Let's make them a barbarian. No, a cleric. Yes, no, maybe druid. Bingo, we get to choose 2 skills. So let's go with insight and medicine. There we go. And now, aside from adding in a name, I've got pretty much all the bits and bobs that I want. Let's add in a weapon of sorts. Do I have them added in? I'm just showing you how quick and simple it is to use these. Now, I have not been generating characters. I have been generating settings for my upcoming game, so that's why I haven't loaded them in yet. So there we go, great stuff. I can close backgrounds. Now I've got access to my items, so let's find a weapon of sorts. Okay, great. Type, just give me a weapon. There we go, weapon. And for whatever reason, this character uses a battle axe, and it's going to be equipped, carried, equipped. And now when I go to my actions, I've got my battle axe. There's my attack roll. Oh, a 21, that's not bad. And my damage is 9. Straightforward, very, very simple. Less than a couple minutes to create a character. I didn't have to know too much. I can add in some spells here. If I explore this, it tells me what my ability check is, my DCs, how many I've got prepared, etc., etc., etc. So I can bring in whatever I so choose as I so choose it. Now that's part of the bonuses. The other part is when you start to make complicated things. Now, this is a complicated map. For the Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, which I'll be running, ship combat is one of the more prominently featured things. I've designed this template, I don't know why that's skewed, I've designed this template in, quite literally, in Fantasy Grounds to make use of ship combat. So here are my various ships and things. If this is the RNS Thunder's Bite is going to attack the poor old red falcon over there, I've got some ballista I'm going to fire at. The most important thing about ship combat in 5th edition anyway is that you can target the helm, the sails, the ballista, the mangonels, all of those kinds of things you can target. So I've set this up so that I can drag the ballista to fire at the helm of the enemy ship. It fires and it scores a hit. Great, so we can do damage to the helm of the poor old red falcon. Now if I go to the red falcon's sorry, was I attacking the helm or the sails? I thought I was attacking the helm. Anyway, I might have mislinked it. The damage is automatically applied, and I think I have actually, because if I open up this token here, it is in actual fact, well, I don't know what happened there. It said it was supposed to do damage to the helm. I did damage to the wrong ship. I dropped it onto the wrong ship. There's the damage to the helm. I dropped it onto the Thunder's Bite. I should read my scores there. So that allows me to go, okay, it went to the wrong person. I'm going to 0 that, and I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to roll my damage onto the correct ship this time, onto the red falcon. There's the damage, and there it is on the red falcon. So we can see it as it ticks down and it goes by. So it's a really great way of keeping track of all these different areas without having to have lots of pieces of paper to figure out what's going on. And we can keep track of distance and all that sort of thing. So that's Fantasy Grounds. And there's so much more to it, by the way. I could do a whole video just on Fantasy Grounds. There is so much more in terms of keeping track of your campaign, and in terms of notes, in terms of adding in encounters. You can pre-build encounters. So here, for example, I've got the pre-built encounter of the Thunder's Bite, which is the ship. So there's the actual ship, plus all of the different tokens that go with it, so that when I have that encounter, I can just drag it onto a map and bingo. It auto-populates the map. There's just a huge amount of advantages that comes with Fantasy Grounds when you operate it like that. Now, all of this stuff, it's what you expect from a virtual tabletop, but principally it allows you to run your game seamlessly and smoothly. There's no dice rolling under tables and that sort of thing. I do like real dice, I must admit, and I don't think that until we have a pad that you can roll on that scans your dice, I don't think that there is going to be any kind of alternative other using digital dice. What I do like about Fantasy Grounds dice, if I put my D20 down there, is that I can change its color if I want it to be a bit more purple or a bit pinker or a bit darker or a bit greener. I know it seems silly, but it definitely does amuse me to be able to change the color of my dice as I so choose or want. And anyway, I find that quite a natty little function. So that is Fantasy Grounds. So this allows you to actually run your game and to coordinate and to check rolls and to keep character sheets functioning and to make sure that the character sheets are all legal, etc., etc. It's very, very useful. But we need more than that. And so I'm going to talk about two other websites that I frequently use. And I think the important thing to bear in mind when you are looking at all of this is you're looking at a workflow perspective. What allows you to simplify your game so that when you are running your game, the burden on you is not in terms of remembering cryptic notes or in terms of figuring out what's where or scale, etc. So if you can prepare beforehand, what software allows you to do that quickly, simply, and easily? And I've been looking, and obviously there are lots of different pieces of software out there. You've got to find what works best for you. That's what's important as far as I'm concerned. I have only partnered with companies that have done that for me, where they make my life easier. It might not be less work, but they have made my life easier. So another one that I'm going to go to, and again, they're also a sponsor of the show, is my old favorite, World Anvil. Now, why do I want to show you World Anvil in particular when we're talking about what software should you use when you are running your game? Well, World Anvil allows you to do a whole bunch of stuff. I've done hundreds of videos almost on World Anvil itself, so I'm not going to go into it too much. What I do want to show you is ease of use for someone who is like me, who thinks visually rather than sort of break down and that sort of thing. And I want to show you this map here. Now, this is for my Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, as you can see there. This is the customized layout that you can do within that. This is not actually where I wanted to bring you. I wanted to take you to the map that I've prepared. Now, the map, this map was done in a project that is called Project Deos. If you don't know what that is, go look for it. Project Deos, D-E-I-O-S, Project Deos. That's where the map comes from. What you are seeing on your screens now is a composite of Project Deos generating the actual map itself, then me taking it into Photoshop to add in all of these spanky shields and things which I quite like, and then me bringing the whole thing into World Anvil and pinning it. So I have now pinned all of these different locations. So when I zoom in, and because it's a nice high resolution map that I've been provided, I can now see, aha, Saltmarsh City, a human harbour, the human harbour city of Saltmarsh. Sajan, the ways are not to be travelled lightly, and Sajan, city of the desert peoples, is not to be entered into lightly either. So I have loaded up these various markers. I have loaded up more markers than that, however. I can add, I can show, anyway, local names. So I can choose which markers I get to see. Now, these markers refer to different things. So when my characters are sailing around the Azure Sea, they come across the Telshan Marsh. All I need to do is keep this map open so that I can track where they are. And when they arrive at the Telshan Marsh, I know it's a dangerous reef that breathes, rising and lowering itself as if alive. So now I can remember what is queued, or I can click on it and it will take me to the article where I have written in all of the statistics for the Talshon Marsh. Now, I haven't written that article yet. I'm still in preparation for the game, but when I create the marker, it automatically creates the article for me if I so choose. I can now go in and populate this marker later on so that it keeps me on track as to what has been done and what still needs to be done. So I have this fully interactable map where I can hide markers, I can add markers if I so choose, I can allow certain markers to be seen by my players, I can allow certain markers to be seen by only myself, and the like. So there are many, many, many options that one has within the World Anvil space. So I find this particularly useful. If I click on, say, the Saltmarsh City, and then I go into the article itself, as I've said, I haven't written it yet. But once I've written it, this will all be populated with whatever information I want to have on the Saltmarsh City, and it can be linked back to the map, etc., etc., etc. So it's a really powerful tool in terms of navigating around one's world, in terms of keeping track of where the players are. I can even in this state right-click and just add a marker if I so chose to do so without any problem whatsoever. I'm not going to do that now, but I can quite literally keep track of where the marker is, what layer is the marker, is it private, what group should it be referencing, so is it a public group, is it a private group, is it a player group. I can do all kinds of things that I want to with simply a right click on the map itself. How easy and simple is that in order to make your map suddenly interactable? There's no more searching. Oh, hang on, let me just find the paragraph that talks about where did you go? You went to Haven Hill? I don't really have much information on Haven Hill, but now I can create an article on Haven Hill as the game is running. So I find that particularly useful. That for me allows a certain amount of interactivity, which is something that we definitely want. So the last thing then, I suppose, when we look at it, and this is certainly how we've looked at it from the channel, in terms of who do we align with, who do we work with, who do we allow to sponsor the channel, who do we want to promote and talk about, it's people that we use. So the last one that I have to talk about then is the map making space. Where and what do you use for creating maps? So you've got World Anvil for creating your world, as well as for creating interactable geographic maps. From a pinning perspective, we've got Fantasy Grounds in terms of our virtual tabletop, allowing people to link in or just to use it for its various functions. And so obviously then finally we go through to our last partner, Dungeon Fog. Now, Dungeon Fog, this is a map, this is a ship that I have built here very quickly, very crudely. Again, what I like about the ability that we have, let me move this screen over a little bit actually so you can have a look, because I want to show you the maps are important and you can make absolutely amazing maps without a doubt. Let me just open this up quickly. I want you to see this side of the screen here. When we are creating these maps, we can create whatever layer we like. I can go through to the layers underneath, either ghosting, and let me zoom in here on the ship so you can see what's happening. It looks a bit confusing, but that's because it's showing me the upper deck as well as the weather deck. So when I take the weather deck away, we can see we've got doors, we've got stairs down, we've got all of the usual stuff. We've got the captain's cabin at the very back of the ship. At the fore of the ship, we've got the capstan so that they can raise and lower the anchor, etc., etc. We can go down a deck further, and again it looks confusing until we hide it. Here we've got the galley, we've got some private storerooms. In the front of the ship and at the back of the ship, we've got the armories, as well as perhaps the sleeping quarters of the resident ship mage, and then we've got quite a large cargo space. Once we get to the hold, not only is the hold slightly smaller and narrower because the ship usually tapers, but we can see the cargo as well as the hidden secret doors that are locked away and are unfindable unless you go and search for them. And some quarters, there's a dungeon down here with prison bars. I assume mutinies often happen on this ship, I don't know. Anyway, we can then go back to these various layers, see what's going on once we've reactivated them, zoom out so we can see the entire map. This allows us to then take this map into the virtual tabletop. We can match the grids up together because the grids we determine at whatever size our ship scale is at. And then we can utilize the maps in the various layers as we so need. So as the players move up or down, we can see what encounters we've preloaded using a virtual tabletop of choice, which of course is Fantasy Grounds. So we could go from one level down to the next level and then down to the next level. The tokens are all there. We can drag and drop dice onto the enemies. And of course we can reference the entire world in World Anvil. So we can make sure that the characters have got all of their histories and the NPCs have got their histories and we know where they are in the world. To me, that combines together the fundamentals of what makes your game easier to run. There's less thinking, there's less umming and ahhing once the game is in motion. You want to be freed up so that you can look at the story, at the impersonations of the various NPCs that you're doing. You can focus on your descriptions because there's prompts that pop up. In all three of them, there are options for you to add in notes and extra little bits and bobs to remind yourself of how your game works. Does this take more prep time, though, than just using good old-fashioned pen and paper? I don't think so. When you're working with pen and paper, you jot some ideas down, and then that's it. That's as far as you go. Sure, on the game day you're running it, you're trying to make stuff up on the fly. It happens, and it might not be a bad game. If you are trying to elevate your game, though, to the point where it feels as if you are completely in command and that you haven't stumbled or fumbled at any point, you need to start prepping. And this, in my opinion, is a great way. You've got the virtual tabletop to keep track of combat, to keep track of the characters, to make your own NPCs, to bring in your own monsters and the like. You've got you've got Dungeon Fog, where you're going to make all of those maps, and they look really pretty, so they're really engaging, especially if you're playing an online game where you've got people in little windows tucked away on screens. By having these really good-looking maps, you can certainly take it further. And then if you've got World Anvil open, you can keep track of, well, just about everything and anything. So when the characters walk into that temple of some strange god that you came up with at 3 a.m. in the morning, if you've just jotted a few notes into World Anvil, those notes are at your fingertips rather than trying to figure out on what page or napkin did you write that idea. I initially released a video a long time ago on why I did not like online role-playing. I was challenged by you guys, the viewers. No, you must reconsider. I have reconsidered, and I am eternally grateful that I did. When you start to look at all of these online options, and most of them have a limited, albeit limited, free option, when you start to look at it from that perspective, you start to realize that your game really can look and feel a lot better. There's lots of comments of people saying, oh, I wish I could run a game like you. I wish I could do this. It's not by luck. It is by planning and preparation and thinking and using the right tools. Are there other tools out there? Are there other VTTs? Yes, there are. Are there other map makers? Yes. Are there other world conglomerations? Yes. Are they the ones that I use? No. And it's not because they're my sponsors. They're my sponsors because I used to use the programs and then I reached out to them and said, hey, let's form a partnership. And that's how it came about. So that's pretty much what I utilize to make my games run better in terms of the software that I have access to. Photoshop allows me to tweak things a little bit, yes, but they're not fundamentally required in any of my games for that matter. What software do you use? Do you use software? Are you one of the old school who, oh, I draw my maps out by hand? I have a giant map that I drew out by hand. It took me several days to draw, and when I look at it, I go, huh, forgot to name that city, but it's printed now, and it's hand-drawn, and the original's gone a long time ago. So I can't go back and change it. If my players blow up a portion of the world, I can't go and change that portion of the world. When I look at certain cities, I go, I don't even know what I was thinking when I drew that city. I can't remember. I drew it 10 years ago. Whereas if it's all digital, well, then you mouse over it and you're like, ah, that's what I thought about when I wrote that city. Interesting. Let me go in there. I also find that these softwares that I am using, yes, this is the software that I am using. I find that the software prompts me to be more creative. So as you're pinning the map in World Anvil, you go, oh, that's brilliant, I can add that. Or as you're creating a race in Fantasy Grounds, you go, I think the race should be able to have this, this, and that. That's pretty cool. Let's go and look at what the other races have got. I've got it all at my fingertips. I have my books here, right next to me. I've got all of the books here. But paging through them, going, well, how much does this, where do I find that? Yes, it can be fun and it's very nostalgic. But if it's all available to you, why not make the most of it? Anyway, look down below. We've got the Kickstarter for Fantasy Grounds Unity. That's very, very promising. We've got a discount code from World Anvil. Thank you for that. And we have a discount code from Dungeon Fog. So thank you for that. So if you want to get those, access to the more advanced features, click on those links below and you will get them. Until next time, what do you utilize when you're prepping for your game? What processes do you go through? Let me know. Let's share, let's talk, let's unpack. Maybe there's other options out there. Until then, however, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming. Okay, I like Fantasy Grounds. I subscribe to World Anvil, and I get the feeling that I could make a bell-shaped goblin temple. So I'm pretty much sorted, I think. Pretty much sorted. And then I've got, you know, dice from Q Workshop for when I'm sitting around a table and I can actually roll dice, because there's nothing nicer than rolling real dice and watching them let you down. Or in the case of Q Workshop's dice, just watching them roll because they're so pretty. I think I've got all my sponsors in one show. I think that's pretty much it. But what more could you possibly want? That's my question.